Hello and welcome to episode 124 of the Arena Regulars podcast. I'm Zach,
And I'm Jeff.
and we're a source for drunken Magic the Gathering arena content.
That's right. Just a couple of regular dudes drinking some irregular beers and talking about MTG, in particular the online client, MTG Arena.
That's right, and this week is our second part of our standard experiment. So if you want to hear about more of what we were doing and a deep dive into the original deck we started with, go back to last week's episode. This will be what Jeff and I did with that deck list separately from each other. More on that in a moment. But first, each week we both bring a drink and we drink that drink on the show. So normally we drink beers, but I had a medical procedure done where I was not supposed to drink beer or alcohol afterwards. So I will be drinking Powerade. Yay, Powerade. Because I'm supposed to stay very hydrated.
And in your defense, he did ask the doctor.
I did specifically ask the question, like, is there something I try to, like, kind of, what is it? Beat around the bush. There we go. That's the word. The phrase. Beat around the bush. I was like, so is there something I'm like I should do afterwards or like not do or whatever? And the doctor just looked at me and she's like, alcohol, no alcohol. I'm like, okay, that's the question.
Got it. No hard liquor.
No, okay, perfect. I can do this. No, specifically like no alcohol and no coffee. So just things that
Bummer.
Yeah. So I will be drinking this in my usual fashion of half and half Powerade, half water. Is the way to go.
Yeah, I haven't tried that, but I will next time.
That is my normal, because sometimes it's a bit too much, a bit too sweet.
I see you've also selected the best flavor of blue.
Yes, actually, this is terrible. Blue, I do love blue Gatorade. This is actually has a flavor. I'm so mad. It says mixed berry. Ugh.
Oh, no, what?
Yeah, Powerade.
No. Yeah, come on.
I'm actually disappointed in myself I got Powerade, but it was half as expensive as Gatorade, so I was like, well, okay. And it shows. Obviously, this
well, I did not have a medical procedure, but in solidarity, I've decided I too shall drink blue Powerade. But,
what is that? That looks dark.
No. So this is Mad Tom with blue food coloring, and this is what it turned out to look like.
Wow. How much food coloring did you use, man?
I don't know, man. I've literally never used food coloring before. I love it. So it felt like a reasonable amount.
It's so funny. That's so good. Oh, anyway, I guess we get to rate these at the end. we'll see if that happens. Anyway, we do have some.
Color was a little off-putting, but otherwise tasted good.
It looks good. I'm excited for when it like changes your whole mouth.
Yeah.
Anyway, we have some Magic news. We'd like to say congratulations to Jake Beardsley, who won the Pro Tour Lord of the Rings. The format was limited and modern, and he was able to defeat Team Handshake's build of Tron, which was destroying the tournament, and it was everywhere, and people were upset. But Jake took it down with Rakdos Evoke. So congratulations, Jake.
Does Team Handshake just consist of like everyone now? Just like
there's a lot of people in that fucking.
Yeah.
It's like 60.
Mono Green Tron players in the top 8. I didn't realize were a part of Team Handshake, I guess.
Yeah, there were several different people that brought Tron, but the specific build that Team Handshake did was the one that was above 50%. All the other builds were below 50%.
Gotcha. I guess I'm mostly just thinking of Christian Calcon. I didn't realize he was part of Team Handshake.
Yep, I guess so. So the Team Handshake grows and grows. They're large. I can't even tell you everybody who's in it. So anyway, I don't think most people can, to be honest. I don't think all the people in Team Handshake can tell you who else is in Team Handshake. It's that
except Nathan Stoyer. He knows everyone.
Well, Nathan Stoyer, he's like the captain. He's the main guy. That's what. And when I think of Team Handshake, I think of Nathan Stoyer.
But congratulations, Beardsley, Jake Beardsley. Rakdos Evoke. I don't know much about Modern. I was looking at the deck list. It looks busted.
I saw
Just
some of the.
more Fable being dominant, seems
Yep.
like.
Yeah, so we do have a round of bans next Monday, which will include Pioneer and Modern.
For some
Um,
reason, when you said which will include, I thought you like knew what they were going to ban. Like, which will
oh,
include the following
these are all
cards.
the
Right?
cards.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's a lot of like ban talks, and Fable, of course, is getting brought up again as
Mhm.
it's won the last three Pro Tours.
Right. And if you
Fable.
haven't been through this before, this is kind of what happens. Like, cards get banned from the top down to the bottom consecutively until they hit a natural point. Like, Uro got banned all the way down to like Legacy.
Hmm.
Fable's probably going to be the same if I had to guess. Some cards just get banned straight through everything, and it's
Like
like
immediately, yeah.
um, sometimes there's weird things with like Luris that it goes backwards because it's just so much more busted in older
And
formats. But
and then
usually this is what happens. Like a new card gets printed. Oh, it's way too good for standard. Oh, now it's actually too good for Pioneer. Oh, it's actually too good for Modern. Oh, it's actually too good for Legacy kind of thing.
yeah.
Um,
So
Oko, same thing happened to Oko. So it's like, no surprise, I think, that next on Modern's, like in the crosshairs for Modern would be Fable because it's
yeah.
moving its way down.
So we will have to see
And
next
Pioneer.
week. We'll probably be talking about what happened there. Um, so though a lot of it might not pertain to us. So we will see, especially because there's this modern Pro Tour, and the One Ring was in a lot of places, including that Tron deck, and was a big reason why it gave that deck legs. So
Yeah, that's a good point. Like when I was looking at the top 8 deck list, I'm like, this is a lot of 4x the One Ring.
mhm. It was fun though. I've never played modern, but watching the matches was always really fun. And there is one with Christian and Simon Nielsen that is
Mm.
amazing. They were both hilarious, and I really liked it.
That's a mono green Tron mirror, if I remember the deck lists correctly.
Um, yes, yes,
Also,
uh,
Simon Nielsen top 8 it again. He's been killing
yeah,
it recently.
yeah. He's very good. He's also like becoming one of my favorite players to watch on the Pro Tour because he's so nice and funny, and he like
Oh yeah.
in that match I was talking about, he forgot to put one of his sideboard cards back into his sideboard. It was like still
Yeah.
in his deck on game 3, and that was the card he needed to go get. And so he wanted to tell the booth, but they I think they kind of figured out what was happening, but he wrote it on his life pad and put it in the middle of the mat so that they could see. Like, I forgot to
Oh,
put
nice.
in what
That's
the
that's
art.
funny, but also like super nice of him. Like in
Yeah,
case you're really confused about what's going on,
yeah,
like
which
this
I
is what
think
happened.
I think they could hear him because he told his opponent, he's like, "Oh, this I forgot to do this. I just realized I forgot to do this." And so they're laughing about it, and then in the booth they're trying, "What are they laughing at?" And then he gets smacked
Right,
down.
right.
Anyway, it was
Yeah,
a good
I've
time.
actually gotten to play against him a few times. He's really
Oh,
nice. Like
yeah.
I've lost every time, by the way. I think I'm
Hmm.
like 0-3 against him, something like that. But back when we used to do the like MTG Melee online tournaments, I guess he was grind. That was when he was grinding
Hmm.
before now he's like pro tour success, but at that point he was like grinding those events, and I would jump into those, and I always seem to get matched against him at like crucial moments in the tournament
And you're
and
like,
get my ass
no.
kicked.
You're
And
like,
so I was always
why?
like, not Simon Nielsen. Actually, I think I might be like 0-4 or 0-5. Like I played against him a lot,
Wow.
and he was always so nice, like in the
Hmm.
chat before and after the match, willing to discuss it after, and like, yeah, I was
That's cool.
got good vibes from him,
Yeah, he
um,
seems super great.
even on that level where you don't actually meet each other, you're just sort of online.
Yeah. Yeah, he seems awesome. Someone to strive to be like. But
Mhm.
also Jake Beardsley, strive to be like him as well. Also, happy 23rd birthday. I think he turned 23 over this weekend. Because there's a lot of talks about him and his girlfriend that was there. Anyway, um, last week we also had some early looks at the Wilds of Eldraine set that comes out early September. Some of the previews included like 2-color adventures, dual creature lands, as well as now only one planeswalker per set, and we got to see that planeswalker. So cool stuff. We'll probably talk about more about that in the future as well. But I do like this new like because everything happened with March of the Machine, we will only be getting one Planeswalker per set, and I think this is a great play. This is so smart. It's so good. I'm really happy with it.
Yeah, this is actually the first time I'm hearing that. I didn't,
Mm.
a bit under a rock, I guess, but
No, I
yeah,
think it
the
was.
way it leads into like, oh, all these planeswalkers lost their spark, right into we're gonna print less planeswalkers, which is something I don't know how actively it's been on their mind, but like definitely they've been printing way too many planeswalkers lately. So this is such a clever way to get out of that in a totally fair way where they can like nobody can object too hard, I
Yeah.
guess.
I mean, I thought that this was going to happen after War of the Spark because they would die,
Hmm.
but them losing their spark and we get to keep them as legendary creatures is probably a
Right. So
better.
it's like if you still love Nissa or whatever, we got you a Nissa card, but
Mhm. It's just no
yeah.
longer a planeswalker. Which also reminds me, New Belgium has a special beer that is coming out
Speaking of
apparently.
Nissa, yeah.
Yeah, it's called Vastwood Seer IPA, which is, of course, it's kind of it's Voodoo Ranger ish. It has like a picture of the Voodoo Ranger, but
Mhm.
it's Vastwood Seer. Though questions online are why wasn't it called Vastwood Beer? But anyway, probably a better name than what they came up with. But
Shout out to our Discord channel for
mhm,
bringing that to my attention.
to our attention, yeah, I didn't know about that either. So very cool. If you want to get the cutting news of beer and magic related stuff, go to our Discord channel. Links in the show notes. Um, Wrapping up magic news very quickly, we just have the summer sale is in Arena. There's a bunch of crazy stuff going on, which I really like. This is the kind of thing we need more throughout the year. It's just like weird stuff in the store that's fun and
Yeah.
funny, and not just like whatever stupid card styles are just like
I was
shadow
surprised. I kept
things.
scrolling and I was like, there's more. There's more.
There's a
Like
ton,
it's
and
not
so
all for me, but there's stuff like I feel like anyone can find something
yeah,
that they at least think is interesting
which
in that.
I bought a sleeve. It was crazy.
Oh,
Yeah,
what?
I bought the scratched magic card
Yeah,
back
yeah.
sleeves.
Nice. I was looking
So
at that. There were a few other ones that I was like, oh my, I'm kind of tempted for,
yeah,
1,000. It's like 1,000 gold a sleeve kind of thing. Seems like
yeah. I think
they're pricing.
the ones that I got were 3,000 gold for a sleeve, but I was like, but I'm gonna use this sleeve. Like I love it. It's so good.
I just
Um,
love my extra life sleeves.
yeah,
Those are- Yeah.
I might change them around a little bit, but right now I'm really loving the scratched back cards because it's so nice, especially when someone steals one of my cards with Siphon Insight and then they just have the scratched back.
Oh, that's cool.
It's just funny. Um, anyway, also next weekend is the Explorer qualifier weekend, so jump into that. Try to qualify yourself for Arena Championship number 4, or even get an invite to the Pro Tour. So could be great. You could be Jake Beardsley and win the whole thing. Who knows?
Just
Okay,
got to
Jeff.
play Rakdos
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's probably good in most formats.
and
Um,
play it extremely well.
mhm. Okay, Jeff. Would you like to give us a little rundown of what we're doing, what we did, and what's happening right now?
Okay, so another shout out. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, number 123, suggest you do that now because we'll explain this whole experiment and exactly what the plan was and how it was structured. But the TLDR is that Zach and I both took this deck list that Zach found online. Our hypothesis was that it maybe did well in some Moto leagues,
Hmm.
but it's a fairly popular deck list. It was Dimir midrange. And the plan was we would play it for a week and then meet up and discuss what we liked about the deck, what we didn't like, et cetera, et cetera. That's all covered in 123. And then this week was when we would sort of not talk to each other and just take the deck list and do what we want to do with it.
Hmm.
Um, so I had a lot of fun changing this deck list around. It's a, I think a totally different deck now, but you could see the skeleton of where it
Hmm.
came from. Like you compare the decks side by side, you're like, oh yeah, a lot of this is the same. Um, but the deck plays a little different. So we both have our own take, completely independent. We didn't talk to each other at all about what we were doing with the deck.
Hmm.
Uh, and now
So
we have the final deck lists to
yeah.
discuss.
So as of like 30 minutes ago, we got to look at each other's deck lists and
Yeah.
get into them. So I'm excited. The If you want to hear more about the original deck, obviously go back to the episode we were just talking about. But essentially, it's Dimir rogues. There's a lot of four of cut down, like Shieldred and Liliana, and like there's Kaito, and you're playing Fairy Masterminds and things like that, and Ink Disappears. But now, Jeff, where do we want to start? Do you want to do my deck list first or yours?
I don't know. I guess
See,
we didn't discuss that.
we didn't. I don't have the ceremonial toonie to flip, unfortunately.
Oh no.
So
Did we
it's
lose the ceremonial
no, no,
toonie?
no. It's in a special place, but not in
Oh,
an
good, good, good.
accessible place for me to get right now. Um,
Mm.
but
Why don't you take the reins here?
okay. So I feel like I was going in a lot of different directions. I tried a lot of different things as well
Yeah.
to get to this list. And this list, I changed the last thing yesterday, actually. I still feel like I will continue to like workshop it a little bit, but I went through a few different phases. I tried the mill thing for a little bit with Jace
Hmm.
and with the big black spell.
That's so
Um,
tempting, isn't it?
I tried it for a little bit. It was kind of fun. Um, Basically, I landed on wanting to play as much instant speed stuff as I possibly can. And that led to the first obvious thing that I wanted to do is make sure I have 4 Siphon Insights because our original list only had 3 with one on the sideboard. That was my favorite card to play. So I was like, jam that one right in
Mhm.
there. Um, but the biggest thing that changed for me is that originally when I was playing the deck, I really liked Siphon Insight paired up with Liliana of the Veil and doing that. What I realized is that playing a Liliana battle with people kept happening. I was playing a lot of like mono black or mirrors or different things where I constantly get in a situation where it's like we both have Lilianas and we're both making each other discard, and it wasn't really going the way I wanted. And so half of my deck was playing at instant speed, but the other half was trying to discard my hand on my turn. And I didn't really like that. So I
Mhm.
decided that Siphon Insight is good with Liliana, but it's really good when my opponent has Liliana as well. So I'll just get rid of all mine, and I won't. If I happen to steal one of theirs, that'll be great. It'll work well with that, as well as if they have their own Liliana, my hand will be safe because I can play cards from exile. And so that was the first thing to go. Was like the Lilianas are gone. Don't need that card. And
So interesting, because I felt like last week it
mhm,
seemed like you were pretty high on Liliana.
I know.
And I
I
remember like in the back of my head the whole time, it's like, it's a card I'm considering removing entirely from my
mhm.
deck.
and and removing it happened very quickly too. Like
Yeah.
it within a couple games, I was like, oh, this isn't what I want to do anymore. Um, so getting rid of that, and in the same vein, I got rid of a ton of the Shieldreds, leaving one in the main.
Hmm.
Um, just because having this like just must deal with threat is very helpful, but also a big part of the reason why this deck is so good is that like my Siphon Insights go and steal your good cards. Your Siphon Insights don't steal mine because I'm not running
Yeah.
them. So then I don't have to worry about you.
I don't play good cards,
Yeah,
idiot.
it's like like you're gonna Siphon Insight. Like maybe you hit like my one of my Urtais, which I also went down to 2 copies, or my Shieldred. But then the rest of my cards, besides like maybe Kaito, like they're okay. Like you don't. It's not super great. um,
Right.
which leads to probably the card in my deck that took me the longest to put in, and then I've I had thought about you the entire time. I was like, am I going to present this deck list to Jeff with this card in my deck with so many copies of it? But I ended up playing 4 copies of Evolved Sleeper,
I knew that's the card that you were going to mention. Yeah.
and so the reason that I have this card in the deck, I also realized that I played instant speed dot deck basically, where I'm like, because they added spectral adversary, so I have more flash things. Um, Gave myself like a spell pierce and a couple more stuff just to do on instant speed as well as like memory deluge. But I would get in situations where like I needed to have some sort of pressure on the board earlier in the game, and being able to have like a one drop, not even a threat, but a card that a lot of opponents will use a card on.
Hmm.
And if they don't use a card on it, it can actually build up and like draw me cards and do something. Ended up being much more useful than I originally thought. And it is also a card that I tend to side out in game two. Um, but not
Especially on the draw, I imagine.
yeah, and on the draw it's not very good, so I get rid of
Hmm.
it. But having a turn one play that gets to attack them while I get to hold up counter magic is was much more important than I thought. Um, and also you get to play the games of like they have the cut down and they're trying to get mine, but I know how to make sure that they don't get to cut down mine, or they waste too much time trying to destroy this stupid thing because they're worried about it.
Hmm.
So then I get to do other bigger, better stuff, um, which has been interesting. But it also, I had some issues where I played too many copies of Mirex, because originally when we were talking about this deck, I was thinking that the biggest problem was Esper control, and then I stopped
Hmm.
running into Esper control. Um, but because of that, I put Merrick's an extra copy of Merrick's in my deck, so I had three. But then I kept running into games where like I would only have Murex as my like only land, or like then I couldn't play things at instant speed because I wouldn't have any colored mana on my opponent's turn, and so then I get in weird, awkward situations, or like strange things where like I can't activate this guy to make him bigger or something like that. So
Yeah.
I ended up moving that card to my sideboard so that if I do run into control, I can bring in the extra copy. But
It's
yeah,
amazing how like well, you weren't playing 27 lands, I imagine.
no. I had cut
Yeah.
a basic for it.
Yeah, it's amazing how like the third Mirax really feels like it screws
Hmm.
your mana.
Yeah,
Because I ran into that same thing where I was like, should we just run four Mirax? Ah, I'll start with three. I'll start with three. And then I
and
was
then
like, why is my mana so bad all the time? Like,
it
like I
yeah.
always need blue and have all black, or need black and have all blue, and like I can maybe use this for even when it's at its best. I get like one turn of casting one of my three blue spells out of it, and
Hmm.
I can't cast a counter spell
Hmm.
because it's only on my turn that I get the blue mana. And so I was like,
Yeah.
it was a very short experiment, the third Murex for
Hmm.
me.
Yeah.
like,
I think it took me longer to realize that it was
like
causing me
even against
problems.
control, even against control, I was just like, it's not worth it because so many times I can't counter what they're gonna do
Hmm.
because I just have black.
Yeah. Mine would like always be where like my first hand was unplayable, so then I like mulligan, and then my lands are like swamp, Mirex, insightful, or
Classic.
siphon insight, and I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
Now I have to siphon
And so,
insight up my turn to look for a
yeah,
land.
gross.
Ooh, that's so gross. Like
You
it's like
never hit it too when you have to do
no.
like, oh, no land, cool. Yeah,
Mhm.
awesome. Yeah.
And then you're just like sitting around, and then you get a land, but it's black, and you're like, oh, and you just have a handful of like more insightful or siphon insights or like fairy masterminds. You're like, damn
Oh,
it.
cool. Jetmir's Garden.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sick. This is so good. Not only are you tapped, but you're the wrong colors. Oh, but yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, um,
Yeah,
but
especially you, because you have like because of the evolved sleeper, I've
mhm,
noticed you've slanted your land base even further towards black. So then you could run into this Murex doesn't cast counter spells issue.
yes. So that does run into some problems. But you know, one of the great things about having four evolved sleepers in your deck is that if they siphon insight you, a lot of times they get a evolved sleeper and they pick it.
You get my shitty card.
Because I don't love the card, but I like it a lot more after playing it a bunch.
I
Um,
don't hate it here, to be fair. I know
mhm,
I've like joked about this card in the past, but
yeah.
I also think my main objection was people mostly play this card wrong. Um,
Yes.
like the way you're describing it is, I think, how it's supposed to be played, where it's
Hmm.
like everything in my deck's instant speed. if you just do nothing on your end step, I'm just going to upgrade this thing. Like
Mhm.
eventually you have like we're going to play a game of chicken, but I'm the one with the 3/3, so you're going to have to do something. Um, my main issue with this card is like people are playing black aggro decks and tap out on their main phase before attacking to
Mhm.
upgrade it. I'm just
Yeah,
like,
and you're
well,
like, this is bad.
now I just like cut you down and I get a 1 versus 3 mana
Yeah.
like
Like,
victory.
yeah, upgrading this, you never upgrade it on turn 2 unless you literally have nothing to do and they like tapped out
And
for
even then it should be,
nothing.
yeah, if they're tapped out or like played a tap land. Like you're on the play, they
Mhm.
played a tap land.
And
Okay,
then
maybe you're in the
maybe
clear, but even then, like if you can do anything else, it's better.
it's so much better. Um, Also, you get people all the time who just don't know how it works. I think we also went through the season reset, so then I went down to like gold or something, and I
Yeah,
just
but you're
have
playing against other people who got
that's
moved
oh,
down
you're
to
right, you're
gold,
right,
right?
yeah.
Like,
Um, but I had a lot of people where I'm like, you know, I have 4 mana open and it's a 2/2 right now, so they try to cut it down, and so I make it bigger,
mhm.
and then or like I make it bigger, they try to cut it down, and then I can make it bigger again, and I'm like, I have the mana. I don't know. You just
By the way, did
whatever.
they change that? I feel like I was only in platinum and I got moved down to gold.
I don't know. I think it depends on
I
how
think it
high
used
up
to be like
platinum.
two. It
Well, because
used to
I
be like
was,
two medals.
I don't know if you were in platinum, but I was in diamond. So,
Oh, maybe I
um,
was in diamond. literally don't remember, but I
I,
thought I was in platinum, and I was surprised to see I was in gold after the reset.
you know what happened? I think I was like diamond 2 when I was playing like the other version of the deck. And then after I started fucking with it, I was like falling down diamond very quickly and then trying to find
Oh
my way
yeah,
back up with the new versions I made. Because the other version was just so good. We actually had somebody, if you're listening, we talked to you on Facebook. I can't remember her name, I'm sorry, but they made Mythic with this deck, not with the other version of the deck.
yeah.
Not our
Not
upgraded
with our top
version.
secret home version.
Yeah,
Yeah, upgraded.
upgraded. So that's also the caveat.
It's like
Like
I have been doing better with my version than with the original, but I
I,
was doing shockingly well with the original. The
yeah,
original was a rock solid deck.
it was really good, but I think I like this other one more, and it's more the play style that I want a blue black deck to be.
Yeah.
Um, so happy with that. In the sideboard, I kept it fairly like it didn't change that much. Oh, also I wanted to say that
I
I do
actually really
have
like your sideboard, so I'm
oh
curious to
thanks.
hear
So
if there was
uh
any thought behind it or it's just like random.
well, most of it's basically the same. Besides I did add the copy of Mirix that I do bring
Yeah,
in, but that's
love
also
that.
because I'm cutting Evolve Sleepers, and then I cut a Swamp for it. Because I don't love Evolve Sleeper in a control match because I don't like putting a bunch of mana into something that can be wiped really easily. Um,
Yeah, I think it's interesting to like um I don't know about talk more about it, but like emphasize that point a little because I think most people would think, oh, I'm against a control deck. I want my 1 drops.
mhm.
As the presumably you're going to beat a control deck with damage, right? You're not
Yeah,
trying to go quite as long as they are. But I really like this idea of let's get rid of the 1 drops and bring in an extra land. It's a little counterintuitive, I think, against a control deck, but
yeah,
like duress basically the way one way to think about it is Evolved Sleeper's going to trade with their worst card at a time of their choosing. Something
mhm.
like Duress is going to trade with their best card at a time of your choosing.
Yeah,
So Duress is like a much more formidable 1 drop against the control deck than
mhm.
Evolved Sleepers.
Exactly. And um, I know I know that there are I don't like investing a ton of mana and turns into a one big creature that's going to easily either eat like Fateful Absence, or it's going to get Farewelled, or Sunfalled, or Wandering
Yeah,
Emperor. All those things like that. I
I feel
don't
like
really
you have to
love.
play it to really understand the feeling, but like
Yeah,
putting mana into this thing feels so bad against control
it feels
because
so bad.
you just like either they just get you like
Hmm.
as soon as it's on the stack, like that thing's off the table and you just spent mana that you shouldn't have, or like if they let it go, you know they're letting it go for a reason. So then you're like, oh,
Yeah,
like
it's
I'm just
not
gonna
great.
get fucking wiped here.
Yeah. Which is also like the there are a couple other things I do in control matchups actually, which I think would be interesting. But on the evolve sleeper thing, um, yes, you get to draw cards, but not until you've spent 7 mana, basically.
No,
So
no,
like
you don't get to draw cards.
you get to you're just
You don't
not
get to
going
draw
to.
a card. You just don't know.
It's
I know
just
it says it on the card. You don't get to
mhm.
draw cards with Evolved Sleeper.
No, not unless like the only time you get to do that is when your opponent is top decking, and
In like a mid-range war where it's like trade, where like the Liliana wars you were talking about earlier.
mhm,
Sometimes it's like, haha, I have 12 mana, top deck Evolved Sleeper, like boom, boom,
I can.
boom, upgraded all the way, beat that. Like you better draw a removal spell. That type of stuff like does happen. I think the other thing I wanted to point out against the control deck of like people always imagine that you're getting this on turn one on the play.
Mhm,
That's good. Yes, getting it on turn one on the play is good against everyone.
mhm.
Like it's a powerful one drop. The problem is that doesn't always happen. In fact, that's unlikely to happen. So you have to think about just how bad it is in
It's
every other scenario. On
it's
the
so bad,
draw, not
not
good.
good.
And on any turn other than turn one, it's quite bad
It's bad.
against the control deck. So um, that's kind of whereas something like duress, sometimes duress is bad, but it's pretty rare against a control deck that duress is
Yeah,
bad. It's
I don't think dress is ever bad against a control deck. Like it's only bad against like Liliana stuff. Um,
Yeah, I mean it's bad when it's like I'm thinking of like vintage control where it's like they just slammed their Teferi. You need
oh
to figure
sure,
something out, and then it's like duress. You sicko.
yeah, it's
Like
like
you
oh,
duress like the turn after they slam
after
their
yeah, that sucks.
their
And it's just like
game-winning
womp womp.
planeswalker.
Um, the other things is that I don't really like having tenacious underdogs in the control matchup because everything they do exile stuff, and that card just gets so much worse when it just gets just eaten. Like
Yeah,
it feels so bad. I keep one copy because having the ability to hasty kill a wandering emperor or something like that does come up, but I don't really like it.
you got to get rid of the 2/2 somehow. Like,
That does well sometimes. Well, that's also the hard thing because you're like, I'm gonna cut all my cut
and like the
downs.
Wandering Emperor is so good against it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like I don't love just tenacious underdog in general in that matchup. Um,
Yeah.
the thing I was practicing or like work not practicing but like trying, and until yesterday, I had Kaito Dancing Shadow in the main deck, which is the 4 mana one.
Hmm.
Um, and part of the idea was that if I can get this on the board, I can flash in my Fairy Mastermind on my turn, attack in, hit them, bounce it back to my hand, and draw 2 cards, and then do it again next turn. And so you can't wipe the board with my Fairy Mastermind on the board. And I just do a ninja thing where I keep bringing it back to my hand. I was able to do that successfully once, and it was the best thing ever.
Oh, nice.
Um,
Yeah.
but besides that, most of the time it eats a Shieldred's Edict like immediately. So it's 4 mana draw a card, which feels pretty bad. Um, that's
Yeah.
why I.
Kaito, yeah,
That's why it's in the
Dancing
sideboard.
Shadow is
Yeah,
not in my 75, but it's a card I really wanted to appear in my 75. And it
yeah,
started main deck, got relegated to sideboard, and it got kicked out. But
yeah.
um,
But I do like the card.
me too.
And
And I think like if I think the reason we both tried it is like if this card's going to be good somewhere, it's
it's got
in
to be here.
this deck. Like
We're
this is
like
what it wants. This
I
is what it's asking you to do.
yeah, but I think in my deck it's a little weirder because do I want to return an evolve sleeper to my hand? Not really, unless, and that's another
Almost
reason.
always no.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I also like to leave it with no counters as long as possible because I might get a Kaito and then I can just play it for one. But for the most part, I'd much rather just flash in stuff and do it that way.
Yeah.
Um, but
Now bouncing Urtai,
hmm,
that sounds sweet.
hmm, that's very true. Oh, that sounds very good.
That's what we call a lock.
Yeah, especially when you have your fairy mastermind out. Their
Yeah.
turn, hit them, blow up something, make them draw a card. You draw another card. You attack with it, return to your hand.
It's an extremely soft lock, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lock.
They try to wipe the board, you play Urtai, counter it, draw two, you draw a card. Sounds good. Sounds really good.
Yep.
Also, randomly, Kaito would save the day if I had to get rid of a blocker to kill a planeswalker, or maybe they have a life linker I have to get through or something, and I can
Yep.
like the that worm engine thing that really sucks. Being able to attack
Yeah.
into that and they can't block was really helpful. Um,
Yeah. So the other card I'm seeing here, Infernal Grasp, I don't believe was in the original
yes. Oh yeah.
sideboard.
So Infernal Grasp is in there because of that engine I was talking about, because it's an artifact
Hmm.
creature and it
Yeah.
really ruins the day. Like
Yeah. My
if you
God,
can't,
I don't know if you had as horrible an experience with Go for the Throat as I had, but
it's
oh my God, that card was awful for me.
mhm.
Like consistently terrible. Like the only thing I wanted to kill always seemed to be an artifact, or I just didn't want a single target. Like it never happened that I want a single target removal spell to remove a non-artifact creature. That
Mhm.
was like extremely rare.
It really feels like the card just it's just like black mana that says deal 5 damage to target shieldred. That's basically what it says.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
it feels like that's always what it's going for. It's like kind of what it does. But like the biggest headaches in this deck are like the the artifact engine, because you can't kill it very easily, and the Sunfall token is an artifact as
Hmm.
well. Or
Yeah.
like I die to poison because, or there's the stupid mites on the battlefield, and I drew into
Yeah.
a removal spell that I can't do anything with. So
Classic. Yeah.
Infernal Grasp immediately comes in when I'm
I
doing
think the
those
takeaway
things.
is like Go for the Throat is the best removal spell in the format. Everyone is aware of that, and
Hmm.
everyone has built their decks accordingly to
Except
include
for
at least some amount of artifact creatures.
except for us. I mean, I
Yeah.
didn't put any. I didn't look at your list for artifacts yet,
My
but
list contains 0 artifact creatures as
that's
well.
what I thought.
But I imagine this is also true of your list. My list is not particularly weak to single target removal.
That's true.
So it was sort of like I just don't care. If you
It's
want to play Go for the Throat, that's fine.
go for it.
Yeah.
um, I all
Especially you with your Singleton Shieldred.
yes, Singleton shielded. Yeah, I just feel like I kept getting good cards off of my opponent's deck, like a lot
Yeah.
of the time.
It's amazing to me that your main deck contains fewer copies of Shieldred than mine does,
I
actually.
know it's crazy. I thought you were gonna have zero. I was like, well, I have to have one. Jeff's gonna have zero, so I'll have one.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
But I
Um,
will say you have 3 in the 75. So
that's true. That's true. Okay. They come in very handy against mono red.
yeah,
Because
that's what I
like,
figured.
mhm. Just because like we've talked about before, mono red doesn't do anything to them, and you just win.
Yeah,
Um,
it's really hard for them to deal 5 damage, obviously, and the life gain is also a backbreaker.
it
Um,
is.
Last card we got to talk about from your sideboard.
So Hullbreaker Horror, I put in my sideboard, and that's a nod to I hate control, and being like I need a big threat um, that can deal with that stuff. It blocks everything, um, and the I'm not in love with it, honestly. It's there. I've brought it in. It's usually like you take out Shieldred and stuff because Shieldred's not good against control,
Oh, so bad.
because they don't draw cards. Um,
Yeah, we talked about that a little last week, but it's
mhm,
amazing how bad Shieldred is against control because like it just doesn't it deals 2 damage a turn.
exactly. It's just so weak, and you don't want to attack with it because they get exiled with the Wandering
Yeah,
Emperor. So like
exactly.
you're like,
Like
what am I going to
you
do with
can't
this?
attack with it. So it literally just sits there and it's like an enchantment that deals 2 damage a turn to them.
Yeah.
Because you don't care about the life gain either in that match. So that's all it does.
Hmm.
And
So I added Hullbreaker Horror in fairly early, being like I want to build this to beat control, and then quickly stopped running into control decks. So then I just didn't. But I never took Hullbreaker Horror out of the sideboard. Um, it actually was never very good for me, and I don't even know if it's supposed to
I
be
was gonna
there.
ask how it performed because like you also mentioned you haven't played against control as much as you
Yeah,
thought you would have. I have experienced a different metagame. We'll probably get into that after the break.
after the break.
But I've found uh this kind of list I don't know, I felt a little favored against control just because you're end of turning everything, so
Hmm.
you're not quite as worried about all the board wipes that they play.
That's true.
So I don't know if I would have thought of Hullbreaker horror as necessary.
Hmm.
Like I think probably it's reasonable against control, but I don't know if I felt like I needed it.
Yeah. I think the other thing is that I didn't always feel like um I had enough spells that could trigger it to do the things it needs to do to protect itself and do different things because I didn't have like red or anything. Because one of the things you can do with Hullbreaker is if it's on the battlefield by itself, you can deal 2 damage to it to like, or target it with 2 damage to bounce it back to its hand if it's going to get killed, or things like that. And when
Yeah,
all your spells are like counter spells or like
right. Like spell pierce doesn't
spell
really
pierce,
work.
it does if they target it with something. Because
Right.
you can spell pierce their thing, but it feels really bad because it doesn't do anything else. Like a lot of times you can if you're playing there's a card in your list that you can play to like um, bounce one of their things and bounce yours, or yeah, things like that, or bounce something and counter their spell, and so it really pushes them back. Um, wow,
Surprised
because
that card isn't in your list, by the way.
that's
But
one.
I will admit I found it late, so
Mhm.
we'll get into that whole discussion. But
Well, I'm excited to talk about that, but yeah, I think with my actual build, Hullbreaker Horror probably shouldn't be in there, and it should be something else. I don't know, maybe another Infernal Grasp, honestly, because your go for the throats can become so bad sometimes. But
yeah, yeah.
yeah, anyway, that is the deck. It's been
Oh, the last thing I'm just realizing now, I guess
mhm.
after sideboard against control, you're playing 27 lands, right? So I guess
um
Hullbreaker horror is more reasonable than I
I actually usually don't play 27 lands. I usually just I take out a swamp and switch it with a Murex. I don't,
thought.
but I
I
could.
guess if you're taking out evolved
Mhm.
sleepers, sorry, control deck sweeper.
That's the new
Um,
one. Evolve
yeah.
sweepers.
um, you need fewer swamps. That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, is the idea. And I'm already running 7, so taking one out is not a big deal. But uh yeah, that's those are my thoughts on this list. It's been fun. Siphon Insight's the best card. You keep it in like every matchup. I used to side it out in some matchups. I don't even do that anymore. I just always keep it.
Yeah, I love it. I'm definitely going to take your list for a spin for sure.
All right. Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't even remember that. I I wouldn't even
I
think
love the
about.
idea. I love just having this because I could just
Mhm.
copy paste this. I don't see anything that I would need to craft.
Yeah.
Um,
So there you go. That's
so
the big thing.
Arena always surprises me with a like,
Mhm.
do you want to craft? Like, what the hell am
Yeah.
I missing?
It's gonna be your fourth evolve sleeper. You're gonna have 3 of them. You're gonna be like, ah,
Definitely possible.
yeah. It's like, do I want to craft
Actually,
this card?
if it's something, it's that. Yeah.
Yeah. You're gonna be like, oh, I'll just take one of those out. It's fine.
Yeah. I'll just cut all of these.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, but it's the main defining feature between our decks, Jeff.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, I know that Evolve Sleeper is a known quantity. It's not like something that people haven't seen or aren't playing. But I think I land on that side of the fence that I actually would rather have it in my deck than not. So,
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
All
I mean,
right.
yeah, I didn't even think of it, so
Oh,
I
okay.
think I like the idea of it here.
Hmm.
If
Just,
again, like we talked about with Kaito, if there's a deck where this card is going to work,
hmm.
it's a deck like this.
Yeah. Um, because, it can have death touch and stuff. So it will attack into a shield grid every once in a while. Um, things like that.
You
It,
still lose mana on that trade, by the way.
you do, but sometimes you don't die.
Hopefully, you got some damage.
Yeah. Um, it can also it just yeah
Probably
it's a
not though, because Shieldred like gains life and shit. You probably are just down on that trade.
yeah. You know what it is, it probably means they have another one in their hand if they block.
Of course, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you're just like it's just like the worst trade ever.
I will be so
but
like
like you said, you delay your demise.
it's
So
true. It's true. I think that the card also just for whatever reason plays mind games with people. I don't know why,
Mm.
but
Yeah, I
I
think it's
think
one of those like classic cards that will perform better at lower ranks than higher
than higher
ones.
ranks, because higher ranks people like just don't care, and lower ranks they're like wasting cards or not really sure or like
Right. It seems like a huge threat to a less experienced player, and a more
yeah,
experienced player understands that it's not really
it's
a big
it's
deal.
not a huge deal. Though the times where I have been like, oh, whatever, I won't kill it, I will lose because all of
Oh
a
yeah,
sudden,
that's definitely happened to me
yeah,
too, where I underappreciate the amount
mhm.
of damage it's going to do.
Where I have a go for the throat in my hand, and I'm like, I'm not gonna do like. They end up playing like turn one, evolve sleeper, turn two, tenacious underdog, and then attack for four, and you're or not on that turn, but the following one, and you're like, I don't really want to kill either of these things
Yeah.
with this removal spell, and I'm frustrated.
Dude, I routinely do not cut this card down. It's
Yeah,
like swamp go, swamp, evolve sleeper, untap.
yeah, it's like that's
You
fine.
got it. Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, um, that will be enough evolve sleeper talk for today, I think. Um, but Jeff, do you want to take a beer break and then we'll get into your deck after?
I
I
think you
don't
mean
know.
a Powerade
A
break.
Powerade break. I don't know because I
Yeah.
refilled my glass while we were going. I usually I can
Oh
tell
my,
how much like
well,
when it's.
this is just
I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Um, but is it? Can you? How much beer do you have left? That's what I need to know.
Yeah, I'm good.
Oh, sick. Okay, perfect. This is the time. All right, so we're
I have a
gonna.
blue tinted glass.
Yeah, I need to know how many drops you put into your beer because it's so blue. Anyway, um, let's
Is
go
it supposed
on.
to be measured in drops? It was more of a stream.
Oh, geez. Anyway, oh, we're gonna go on a break. We'll be right back.
Yeah,
This beer break is brought to you by our patrons over on Patreon.
that's right. You're already supporting the show just by being a listener. But if you want to support the show even more, Patreon's the best way to do that. Plus, you get to vote on your favorite co-host by either voting for the host who drinks beer or the host who drinks Powerade.
That's
Up
me.
to you.
So go to patreon.com/arena regulars to vote on your favorite Powerade drinking host.
Or if you'd rather give Zach flack for drinking, what is it? Mm, Very Berry?
Mixed
Very Berry
berry.
Powerade. Great place to do that is on the Arena Regulars Discord channel. The link should be in the show notes.
It's down there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it's the same flavor. I didn't buy more. It's this is sad because like Jeff and I were talking about this during our beer break in quotations. Oh yeah, you go ahead, crack yours. Um, but this is the first like on the show we've done a show where we didn't drink beer before. We didn't drink anything alcoholic either. But this is the first time where one of us was drinking something alcoholic and the other one wasn't. So breaking new ground in this
Yep.
this episode. Uh, anyway, we'll see if it. I don't know. I don't know what it'll do, but maybe this. Maybe I'll drink more Powerade. I don't know. Tell us if you'd rather I stop drinking. I guess, which would be kind of sad for me, but we'll see. Anyway, Jeff, let's talk about your deck list. I'm very excited
Yeah.
to hear
Okay.
your ideas behind this. Sorry, go ahead.
So there were a lot of similarities. I was pretty surprised when I saw your deck list because in the end results are pretty similar. And I kind of expected us to diverge just because we weren't talking at all. You seemed pretty high on certain cards last week where I was already like, I don't know if I'm going to keep that card.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I talked a little bit about it last time. Um, but basically, and you could see it in my, if you logged into my account, I'm pretty sure the original deck I have it on there is named like A Tale of Two Decks, um, because that's just how I felt about it. And you described a very similar thing when you're talking about your deck, but it felt like there were two different decks going on here. There
Mm-hmm.
was like the Fairy Mastermind, Urtai Resurrected, Make Disappear, kind of instant speed gotcha deck.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the Liliana of the Veil, Tenacious Underdog, Children of the Apocalypse, just kind of black mid-range deck. And so basically what I did is I tried to split those two things, and I made two different decks. One is called Dimir Liliana, where I was just trying to take advantage of Liliana
Hmm.
as much as possible. That deck didn't really end up working out. I had some fun trying to tune it, but it just never really got to a place where I liked it. I actually like went down discard route and like let's play cards I don't mind discarding, and
Hmm.
that led to like, all right, we're gonna put some Atraxes in here and some Reanimators and like that whole thing. But um, I just never felt like there was a reason to be doing that versus any of the other Reanimator builds. Um, and I was just kind of losing a lot. So uh, I kind of scrapped that one and moved on to the other version, which I titled it Dimir Tempo, but basically really leaning into Fairy Mastermind, Urtai, and this whole instant speed thing that the deck was doing. So a very similar direction that you ended up taking, actually. I threw in some spectral adversaries, just like you, cut down on Shieldreds. I left two in the main deck just because it's a good card.
Mm.
Um, and it does sort of synergize with the whole like Urtai, Fairy Mastermind, drawing cards thing.
It's true.
Like forcing your opponents to draw cards and then drawing cards yourself. It's all very nice with Shieldred, but I've never found it to be great. Like this was the card that I'm always kind of like, if I had a card I really wanted to put in or try, it's going to take Shieldred's slot.
Hmm.
But for now, it's like just a good card that's taking up space kind of thing. And then I think I went, other than that, very similar to you, but I went a little harder on the sort of tempo route. So we can start to talk about like differences. You had Evolve Sleeper. Like I mentioned, I didn't even think of Evolve Sleeper, to be honest. Never tried it. I didn't run those. But I have 4 copies of a creature that you are playing 0 of.
Hmm.
Um, Longtime listeners may not be surprised to hear that this card is Snap 4 of in my deck, never changed. That is Suspicious Stowaway.
Hmm.
I've always loved this card. I still love this card. Um, this card's great. Why would you not play this card?
It's true. Even looking at it with, the combo, and you've played this before, but Suspicious Stowaway and Kaito are very good together because
Yeah.
you it's basically like your little 1/1 ninja that can't be blocked, but you get to play it on turn 2 and then Kaito on turn 3. Um,
Hmm.
though you do cross your fingers praying that it survives, but
Yeah.
in my case, it never does. So then I just get mad and I just take it out of my deck. Um,
Yeah.
but
So
it doesn't surprise me at all. It's definitely one of the first things I thought of when we were doing this. Is like I know Jeff's going to add that card to the deck.
the other thing is it plays really well with the idea of holding up counter magic. If you stick this, you do the whole cross your fingers thing. If you untap with it, now you get to just pass the turn and flip it. And it's really hard to come back from a Seafaring Werewolf backed by counter magic. It plays a little bit of that like mono blue Protect the Queen deck
Hmm.
where like they play something, they play Curiosity on it, and then they just draw Spell Pierces and it disappears for the rest of the game. This deck can do that,
Hmm.
but it sort of does it without having to commit to playing 1-drops and Curiosity, right? Sometimes your Suspicious Stowaway just flips, and then that's the kind of game you're playing.
Hmm.
Um, it's like you mentioned, great with Kaito. I love how we both went up. We cut Liliana and went up to 3 Kaito. I'm pretty sure the originalist only had 2.
Hmm.
Um,
No,
oh
I
no, the
have.
originalist did have 3. Oh,
Hmm.
okay. I thought I added one. Maybe I added one and then took
And
it
then took it out.
away. Yeah. But Kaito obviously has been really nice
Mm.
just in this list in general with the number of 2-drops that are evasive.
Hmm.
Like all of our 2-drops kind of end step. They're either Suspicious Stowaway or they end step and have flying. And so it's like it's really common that Kaito just comes down and draws a card. That's
Hmm.
been like usually I would say most times I've played Kaito, you're expecting to come down and make a ninja and then start drawing cards. In this deck, my expectation is he comes down and draws a card.
Mhm.
Um, because it's just like that's what happens the most. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
he's the best. I love Kaito. Even if I just like he comes down and I loot, I'm also like usually pretty happy with that.
I do that so rarely, but sometimes.
I'll do it when I'm like I don't know if I'm gonna hit my fourth land drop,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and things like that. Where like I'm just happy to be able to like be able to set up for my following turns. Um, Even in a situation where like I'm going for the flash in the fairy mastermind, play Kaito afterwards. If my fairy
Hmm.
mastermind dies, I'm still slamming Kaito on 3 just so I can get it down. Because also the thing with Kaito is that if they have Shieldred's edict, a lot of times they'll do it right before he phases out for the
Yeah,
turn, and so you just get like a 1/1 out of it or something, and it can be kind of sad. Um, so being able to make sure they are tapped out when you play him is usually something I'm interested in.
yeah. I think the other big difference in our creature base that we haven't talked about yet is just that you left in the two tenacious underdogs.
Mm,
I've hated this card. I've found it so bad every time I've played it that it's a card that I love. Just in like when I read the card, I'm like, yes,
hmm
I'm in. But I just had to cut. I was just like, that's enough of this card. Like I'm so tired of it just being bad. There's just so much going on. So I was playing against a ton of Esper still, and this card is just so bad against Wandering Emperor
It's so
that
bad.
I don't know. It's sorcery speed obviously, and it doesn't run away with the game the way that Suspicious Stowaway can. So, or like sculpt my hand at all. It's really just like it's a different type of value than I was looking for with this deck. I have a few more 4 drops than you as well, so it's I'm less interested in like tapping out to
Hmm
bring this back. I was mostly just like I kept it around for a while and then eventually was like, you know what, this is just not pulling its weight anymore.
hmm
And so it had to go. But yeah, the metagame I've been facing is a ton of Esper control and a lot of mono white, which we talked about last time as being like a horrific match.
I played Mono White once. I've only played against it one time. And
So many humans, man,
the entire
against humans so
time
often.
that we've played, I've had one match against Mono White and I won. And it was fun.
Nice.
Yeah, so
Uh,
I I just don't
that'll
I barely think about it. It's so funny.
That's crazy.
I'm like
Like that'll
almost
come up later when I talk about the sideboard. My
mhm,
sideboard is heavily like
I could
mono
see.
white
Yeah.
slanted. Uh, but I played against like Esper control mono white, more 5 color than I was playing against
Mm,
before. It seems to be on a bit of resurgence for me, a lot of 5 color, which I don't mind. That matchup seems good.
yeah.
And then a ton of just like people playing whatever, like
I
Black
feel
Red
like
Phyrexians. I somehow
oh
played twice, 2 different people. I don't
oh
know if like one of these content creators made a deck or
oh
something.
maybe one of
That
these
was
content
my,
creators. Um
yeah.
I it's funny because my metagame is like almost 50% mono black or like
I don't think I ever played against
I
Mono
play
Black.
against mono black all the time.
That's
It's
so
e-
weird.
it's like mono black or like mono black or it's like Dimir battles.
Mm,
Sometimes I run into Esper and then sometimes mono red. I've been playing a lot less 5 color and as I said, barely any mono white. And then every once in a while
yeah.
someone will like I played against one like mono green player. And I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
um but yeah, uh, so that's yeah, because my entire I'm constantly thinking about like mono black and like Liliana stuff and like that's why that's why I thought about playing Evolve Sleeper because I play against it all the time. I'm like
Mm,
maybe I should play that card.
gotcha. I was like, forgot that card existed. It's
Yeah.
like,
It's like every other match, like turn one is just like a ball sleeper. I'm like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah, no, like the only thing buzzing through my brain is Wandering Emperor. The opponent always
Hmm.
has Wandering Emperor all the time.
Yeah,
It's like Esper or Mono Way. They always
yeah.
have it. So it's like,
Oh, that's so funny. Um,
yeah.
I want to talk about one of the card types you added. I want to hear your thoughts about this card, um,
Yeah.
the new card type.
Hmm. Can anyone guess? I have a new card type in a Dimir
Hmm.
deck.
It's um, yeah. So Invasion of Amonkhet.
Hmm.
What? Why? But tell me.
Yeah, so this actually is really similar to what you were talking about with Siphon Insight. What I realized is like I don't have to play good cards because other people are going to do it
Mm,
for me. So this card has been super cool. It's also become a bit of a pet card of mine, but it was a bit of a carryover because originally, like the first deck I built was my Dimir Lilianas that kind of morphed into this. We want you discard like all card advantage kind of thing, and then we have this reanimator side package, and this was obviously the card that like brought those two
mm,
things together. Um, and so I was like, maybe I should try it in the next deck because I it was one of the only things I liked about the other deck.
mm,
Uh, but I was like, obviously, I'm not going to play four. Uh, Four's a lot.
yeah.
But the cool thing about this deck, so the problem with that other deck, I was playing like Rona's. I had some Raven Mans in there to try to get
Mm,
the whole discard thing going. Um, I had Tenacious Underdogs because they're good to discard like that
yeah.
kind of stuff. The problem was I never. It was so hard to flip my Invasion of Amonkhet because so much
Mm,
of my creature base was like other than Tenacious Underdog, they were creatures that you're not really playing for their combat
mm,
abilities. You're playing for other reasons. Um, this deck was the opposite. Like it's so easy to flip that I felt like that's why it's worth including because
mm,
all my stuff is flying or unblockable, or like kills something when it comes down, or is shielded.
yeah.
Um, and so this is in there, and I've really liked it. It's sort of just in there as like if you get the upper hand, a couple of creatures on the board, whatever, you could just play this, draw a card, make them discard, whatever. Most opponents will have something you're interested in reanimating. If
Mm,
not, you can hit like a Shieldred. Sometimes getting an Urtai is not that bad, even at
mm,
sorcery speed, like just kill something. Um, Hell, I've got like the second Fairy Mastermind several
mm.
times, and that's been
Yeah, because
good
it's a
enough.
4/4.
4/4 flying, and like
Mm,
I'm holding like Urtai, and I'm like, oh, you're gonna
yeah,
be so screwed when I
it's
counter whatever you do and
it's a
draw two
fairy
cards off it.
fairy mastermind that can't get cut down. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So like it's just been actually really good. I think two is the right number. Like you don't want to go crazy on this,
Hmm.
but it's just so easy to flip, and you get total control over when you want to flip. Like you usually don't tap out on turn three for this.
Hmm.
It's like a turn five thing. It's like
Hmm.
this and you're holding make disappear
Yeah.
is much more common, and you have a couple of flyers out there kind of thing. And it just kind of seals the game a lot of the
Hmm.
time when you do that. And then yeah, randomly it'll like mill Atraxa and your opponent like I've actually had that happen twice where I played it, I milled my opponent. They have like literally almost no graveyard, and I have like two fairy masterminds, and I milled Atraxa and they just
Hmm.
could see. Okay, good game,
Yeah,
yeah.
good
But
game.
because other people are doing this whole like big, huge stuff all the time, this card just randomly wins games. It's sort of
Yeah.
like reminds me a little bit of Zareth, but like sucks less.
Yeah, it sucks a lot less. Um, no, I'm happy that you have it in here. I actually tried playing this card. I had 3 copies in my deck for a while. Um,
Oh, nice.
and And I put that many in because I wanted to see how it could impact. But the amount of games where I'd have like two on the battlefield and I just couldn't, I was always on the back foot. I could never get
Mm,
the thing going where I'd be able to like, I'm literally playing them so I can like try to draw a removal spell basically. And it was just not really working. And I almost always sided out two of them and left one in the off chance it would be helpful. There were some
right,
fun
right.
games where I did get to do that, but I think ultimately, as I'm looking at your list, I think the biggest difference is that I was usually in a situation like a scenario where I could hit like attack it for three because of the way my
Hmm.
creatures come down.
Yeah.
And if you're prioritizing flipping your suspicious stowaway, or you have more copies of spectral adversary as well, it's easier for you, I think, to be able to deal 4 damage to it than in my deck where I usually have like a one drop and then a one power creature, and then I'd have to like invest mana into it to get it to be bigger. Um, so I think I like it a lot better in your list because in mine I ultimately just decided I I it wasn't doing it for me. But you also, I think, honestly, I think Suspicious Stowaway is huge because having like four more copies of a card that can like just attack into it, though you don't get the card because it hit a player.
Yeah.
Um,
That is
Obviously,
always such a bummer. I was like, if this
yeah.
card was printed today, it would say player or battle.
hmm
But
But yeah,
yeah, I was gonna say that too. Like suspicious stowaway is the main difference because it's so often that this thing's just left on two. And even if I'm
mhm,
on the back foot, the stowaway can attack it.
yeah,
And also the extra copy of Urtai, I think, goes a long way there too,
that's
because you
true.
can like remove the blocker and
hmm
then take it down. Um,
Get in there.
but yeah, it's cool to know that you tried it too, because I was just like, oh, I only really tried this because I was still coming off the high of this card from my other deck. I don't know if I would have put it in if I hadn't built that other deck,
Yeah,
which
I
I think
think
is like has a cool mini lesson in it too, where it's like because I tried to do a bunch of different things, I ended up,
finding something else.
yeah.
Yeah, it was also when I was starting to think about the mill deck, and so then I added this, and then I
Mm,
completely changed the deck and had a bunch of these and a bunch of other mill stuff. So it was definitely present in that deck. But um, going into your spells, the biggest one that is the outlier is the one we kind of like mentioned earlier.
yeah.
If you want to talk about that one.
Yeah, so the card we were alluding to earlier is everyone's favorite, I think, Fading Hope.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this was a card that like it came into my deck very late in the process
Mm-hmm.
because I forgot it existed. And I was thinking about, just tempo decks in general, and I was literally at one point just like, oh man, it'd be awesome if I could play Fading Hope. Like that was the nuts for tempo decks. But I assumed it had like rotated out or something because I haven't seen it in
Mm-hmm.
so long. And then I'm like, was that Midnight Hunt? Am I crazy? Is that in the format? I don't know. It feels like it was last format. Is it in the format? And then I had to like go in, set my, standard only. It's like, oh, yeah, Fading Hope is legal. So I
Oh.
immediately like cut some. I think I had like a March of Swirling Mist in there. I'm like, no, Fading Hope.
Mm-hmm.
I think it should actually probably be three Fading Hope and two Cut Down. Right now, I have it
Yeah.
the opposite. Um, Fading Hope is just does a lot of the same things that Cut Down does, except it scries, and it
Mm-hmm.
also is less useless against decks where Cut Down is bad
That's true.
and protects your own creatures
Oh,
really
it's
well. Like
also good.
Fading Hope or with Urtai is really good. Um,
Ooh, that is good. It gets rid of all the stupid samurai tokens really easily,
yeah,
which cut
same
down.
as Cut Down there, but like you get to scry.
Yeah, that's much better. Yeah, because cut down continues to be something that's just like irritating to me. Where I'm just like, man,
Yeah,
I I want this to be
it's
something
when it's
else.
good, it's great, but
Hmm
like in this deck, Fading Hope is pretty similar.
Yeah,
Even against like we even talk about, oh, people have the evolved sleeper and they put some mana into it. Fading Hope is still backbreaking against that.
it's so backbreaking against that. Oh
Yeah.
God,
So I don't know. I've just been liking Fading Home more and more. I put in 2 copies, and I haven't had a like because like I said, I discovered it. I realized it was legal so late
Yeah.
in the game, but I
It's
think there should be more.
it's so funny because every time I'd open my deck builder, it would be one of the first cards I'd see because it's like it would only show me blue and black cards, and it's a one
Right.
drop. And every time I'd
I
look
always
at
have a
it,
bunch of random white cards at the start that are like
yeah,
part blue or part black.
or whatever. That's so annoying. I want them to get rid of the color identity crap. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was looking at that card and I was just like, I don't think it's good enough. And I kept just skipping over it,
Oh,
be like, I don't think
it's
it's good
so
enough.
good.
So as I open this and I see it, I'm like, damn it, I never tried it. I never put it in and just saw if it was good. Because I just assumed I didn't like it. Um,
Yeah. I actually won a game with, last night by bouncing my spectral adversary and then recasting it
Unrecasting it.
for a crap ton in the late game. Just
Ah,
like see all of that shit.
that's good. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love the spectral adversary as well. Um,
Mhm.
I was it helps with so many different things. Um, that's just a great card that I forgot I really liked of the adversary cycle. Like I like it so much. And
Yeah,
as a
it's just a
spirit,
good card.
it's a good card. Um, the one other thing I want to talk about your main deck before we move on to your sideboard. Uh, only 3 copies of Siphon Insight.
I knew I was gonna get black for that.
What is this about? This is the best card in standard. Why are you? Why are you? Let me. And the other reason is because you cut the one from the sideboard.
Yeah. So originally I moved it into the main deck. I had 4. And then
Hmm.
I was just drawing too many of it. I was like, there was a game where I had all 4. And like all I did was sit there and cast Siphon Insight, and I slowly lost the game. Um, but uh, I don't know, like it's still good. I don't know. I'm not even sure it should be 4 or 3, to be honest.
Oh no, it's so good.
I'm thinking of going to 2+1.
I hate it. No,
I,
no.
I love the card, don't get me wrong, but in this build, it is weaker than in the previous build. It's just as fun, but it's not as strong a card
I think you're playing
as
against too much mono white, and you don't want to draw a bunch of one drops.
that's part of it. It's so
Yeah,
bad against mono white. Um,
the one
and
time I
against control, like my plan is kind of shifted. The old deck is like against control, you're relying on Siphon Insight 100%.
Mhm.
In this one, it's like, I don't know, Siphon Insight hits like board wipes that I'm not interested in and stuff like that. So their Siphon Insights tend to be better than mine. Whereas generally you want the opposite. Like against Dimir midrange, I would think the opposite is true.
Mhm.
If I was playing against that deck a lot, I'd be more interested in Siphon Insight. But in Esper, it's like I always hit stuff that I don't care about.
I always hit the Wandering Emperor. I don't know, like,
Yeah, that must be nice. I
or the
think I've
lands that I
literally
want.
like
Like,
since like last week I was talking about hitting that stuff and that was sweet. And this week it's like it just never hit something
oh,
interesting against us. I'm like,
yeah,
ooh, good. March of Light or whatever. Like,
yeah.
yeah, that card fucking
I'm,
sucks.
I'm playing against mono white and like I siphon insight once and I get a brutal Cathar. I'm like, perfect. This is amazing.
Yeah.
Like,
I get
uh,
like your humans have ward.
oh yeah, that guy,
Ah.
the Lord, yeah. Um, all right. Well, I can see that. I can probably or possibly see that because of the decks you've been playing against, you would see why you don't like it as much. But basically, my Siphon insights say get target Shieldred or Graveyard Trespasser or Liliana of the Veil. It tends to be the
Yeah,
case when my
that must be
opponent is
nice.
just beating me down with Tenacious Underdogs. And I'm like, oh, I will play your Graveyard Trespasser and eat yours. And then now I get to attack you. And
Shouldn't have
the,
played Graveyard Hate main deck,
yeah,
sucker.
fuck you. Um, so anyway, that's great. Ah, so nice. All right. Tell us this sideboard plan against mono white.
So
What
we did miss one
oh, did I miss something?
crucial thing in the main deck.
Oh my gosh.
I'm playing 25 lands.
Oh yes, that's right. So you cut a land.
I
You.
cut a land. I know. Oof. But to be fair, in my defense, it was Shipwreck Marsh. Because fuck that land. That is the land, you talked about Mirex's mana issues. That's the land I hate the most. Shipwreck Marsh. I always have like two Shipwreck Marsh and Mirex or something as my lands in my opening hand. I'm like, what the hell is this? I'm gonna mulligan this on principle because screw this. My deck's all like 1 drops and 2 drops. I'm playing fucking Shipwreck Marsh.
Yeah, for
I
me,
don't
that's
feel
just
like
like,
I can cut it.
I
So.
guess you have like more copies of Spell Pierce. You have Fading Hope. Um, where like with that, I'll be like, I'll play Shipwreck Marsh tapped on turn one, and I'll just play my Evolve Sleeper
There are so
on
many
turn three.
games that I lost that I would have won if Shipwreck Marsh was Dark Slick Shores. Like
Hmm.
so many games. And I'm just like, I hate this land. But I don't think it's
See,
reasonable to cut another one,
but
but I
and
kind of want to cut them all.
no.
I
Because like
hate it.
my thing is like the turn one tapped land doesn't hurt me as much as the turn four Dark Slick Shore, where you need a fourth land to like. I hate that.
You're crazy.
No, because then you can't.
Totally the other way
Because
around.
I'm working on like I want to like flash in a 2 drop with counterspell backup or different things like that, and I hate having to do turn three again. It sucks. It's the worst. I'd much rather have Shipwreck Marsh on turn one than a Dark Slick
Shipwreck
Shore on
Marsh
turn
is
four.
garbage.
No, this is a mistake. This is the biggest mistake in the deck.
Should have cut a Dark Slick Shores.
Yeah, exactly. That's the card you cut.
In your deck that's like 60% 2 drops and 1 drops.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, um, blasphemy. So sideboard package. You got some interesting stuff, like much different. I'm I like it.
Yeah, I think I guess the other thing worth calling out is there are no go for the throats in the main deck. I already
Oh,
talked when
right.
you were talking about how I hate that card.
Yeah, just
But
take
I
them out.
did acknowledge that it's powerful, so it's in the side. Like
Hmm.
basically the plan is let's be linear game one. We're gonna flash stuff in, gonna counter stuff,
Hmm.
try to sneak through that way. If there are threats that are non-artifacts that I feel like need to be dealt with, go for the throat comes right in.
Hmm.
For duress, that's just for control. I mean,
Hmm.
like cut down's bad against control.
So bad.
So, something else comes in. Um, then guess the order we're looking at, I have Blue Sun's Twilight here. Um, basically Blue Sun's Twilight and the fourth Glistening Deluge and
Hmm.
the Nebelgast Intruder. Basically everything else that's interesting about my sideboard is that against mono white, I sort of side into a control deck. So I take out a lot of my creatures
Hmm.
and I bring in these things. More removal. Blue Sun's Twilight is actually quite good against them. You'd think it's like not that good because they have so many creatures, but they actually have individually very powerful. Like there's always one creature that's like winning them the game. The one that gives them
Hmm.
all flying, or the one that like gives them +1/+1 counters all the time. For soldiers, the
Oh,
one that
for
gives them
soldiers.
flying,
Right, right.
that gives them all flying.
Right.
Sorry, that's Azorius, but it's
Yeah.
like
Sorry, I got confused because I was like,
yeah.
wait.
I
Yeah,
said
yeah.
mono white and then
Yeah.
no,
Let's keep going.
That's
Keep going.
Azorius soldiers. But I think of those decks as pretty similar because like it's only splash is blue.
I just like
Um,
yeah, it's just so funny because I haven't seen soldiers in like months.
oh
So
my god, I'm like sitting there like planes. Is this mono white splash blue, or Esper?
yeah. Where I'm like, is this mono black, Dimir, or Esper? That's what I'm playing against.
Right. Uh,
That's so funny. Sorry. Anyway, keep going.
uh, But yeah, we side out some of our creatures and we bring in 4 Glistening Deluge. And the reason we side out our creatures is because Glistening Deluge would kill them. So then we bring in Nebelgast Intruder. Surprisingly, just one Nebelgast Intruder has made the difference so often in like creature combat, like mirror matches.
Yeah.
That I've just had to leave this guy in there. Like I tested him out in the main deck. I was like, it's kind of weak. It's like a limited card.
Yeah.
But in these matchups in particular, they just attack with their Thalia or something. You're like, boom, gotcha. See you never, Thalia.
Oh my God, that
And
is
so
amazing. I because the our deck is really, or the when I'm playing, Thalia just fucks us up. Like
Mhm.
it's so awful. Like when your spells
Yeah.
cost twice as much, it's the worst. Cutting down for
Let me
two
tell
is
you,
disgusting.
they never play around Nebelgast Intruder.
It is. This is my favorite card. This is my favorite thing about this whole. The fact that you're playing this card. Never in my life.
Yeah.
I even like play spirits and like spirits. This is not even on my radar. Not even close.
Yeah.
Um,
This is like it says destroy target Thalia and tilt your opponent.
yeah, I'm sorry, Jeff. You should probably read this card for our listeners because I don't think that they know
Oh yeah, they might not know
Nebelgast
what it does.
Intruder. Yeah.
So this is, of course, it's uncommon from Midnight Hunt. It's 2 and a blue for a creature that's a spirit. It's 2/1 flash flying. When it enters the battlefield, up to 1 target creature an opponent controls gets -2/-0 until end of turn.
3 mana kill target Thalia. That's so
Yeah.
awesome.
Now it doesn't work if they have one of those stupid +1/+0 words, but
Yeah, that's true.
yeah,
Well, I mean, like you could pay for the ward, but oh no, because it'll kill it too. Yeah,
it'll
because it
still have
gets.
1 and
Oh
first
right,
strike.
it's
So
first
it's
strike, so it doesn't work.
like,
Right.
but that's not the game plan. The
Mm,
game plan is, you're on the play. They attack with their Thalia.
that's so good. Uh, sorry, it's just so funny.
It's been like useful enough that I'm keeping it around.
Yeah.
And then yeah, Blue Sun's Twilight again. Like there's usually just because we're also somewhat of a like when we sideboard, we have 4 Deluge, and they tend to
Hmm.
sideboard into um Gobakons. And
Sure.
so that's why I'm up to 4 Deluge, because like I kept running into my Deluge getting ripped and then I'm screwed.
Hmm.
So we're up to 4 Deluge, and so the sideboard plan is essentially you have Deluge, um, you try to line that up, but sometimes they have lords, they have stuff like that. And so you wipe out you wipe out the wide stuff with Deluge, and the Blue Sun's Twilight is to like really be the backbreaker
Hmm.
for the single creature they might have left over. I've had it where you steal their lord and then deluge them away, that kind of thing. Um, or just go for the throat their lord or
Or
whatever. But
whatever.
that's the game plan. We side into a much more like control-y deck where you have 4 deluge and then a bunch of single target stuff. And
Hmm.
you're like bouncing lords and then deluge. You're trying to line that up basically.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the hardest thing with Deluge is that it doesn't kill Adeline, um,
Yeah.
which is the
It
most
kills
frustrating thing.
like
But it kills
all of
everything
the
else.
advantage they get for like it kills all her 1/1s or
It's
whatever
true.
if they manage to get
That is true.
ahead on that.
You could Deluge and then cut down Adeline after everything else died. So that is good.
I've also stolen Adeline before, and that was pretty sweet. But
Hmm.
um, I think I still lost that game, but it was cool in the
Yeah.
moment.
It felt really good.
Right, I didn't get to copy it because I didn't have a billion mana. But
Yeah. Yeah, I had stolen with Siphon Insight a
so it's legendary, right? So the
Right.
copy wouldn't
See,
even work.
yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it kind of sucks. That's annoying. But with Siphon Insight against Infect or Toxic, sorry, I had stolen their Tyvar's stand, and then I buffed up my Fairy Mastermind just enough so it didn't die from the deluge,
Oh,
which was
nice.
which is pretty fun. Um, but anyway, oh, great deck. I'm excited to play yours as well. I want to see how much different it feels. I think that there are some pieces in mind that as I'm looking at yours, I'm like, yeah, why did I ultimately keep some of the stuff in that maybe I didn't have to? Or like some decisions, I'm like, huh, maybe I should try new things. Though, to be fair, at this point, I've played a lot of Dimir, and I am getting tired of playing
Yeah,
Dimir.
yeah. Yeah, I think I kind of wanted to end it with just like discussion on the experiment in general,
Mhm.
I guess. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was super cool.
Yeah.
And one thing I wanted to encourage people to do was to sort of try a similar thing. Like, it doesn't have to be so formal, but like take a deck that you find online or whatever, and then make it your own.
Hmm.
It, and I think you alluded to this earlier, like it doesn't even have to be better than the original deck. If you enjoy playing it more, if it's more your style, like just take it and run with it. Because one of the nice things about doing this approach is, sure, I cut a land, and I think I swapped a swamp for an island because I got a little more blue heavy. I cut some shieldreds and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But for the most part, I knew I had a solid mana base that worked. I didn't have to worry about building that from scratch. I knew I had a curve that was okay. So generally, if I was swapping, like I could make conscious decisions to lower or increase the curve. I think we both decided to lower it,
Hmm.
but I know that generally it's working, right? So you get to focus on just what do you like rather than those kind of specifics of deck building.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think the biggest part is like, don't be afraid to make it your own. Because I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'm just gonna take the stack that I know is good from the internet. I don't want to change it because I'm not as good as whoever built it, or like I don't know what I'm doing. Like it's really easy to fall into that mentality. I would say just change it. Just do your thing, make it yours.
Yeah,
Um, find what you like to play, because like you're gonna do better with a deck you enjoy playing, anyways.
it's that's true. And I definitely like don't if you're listening and you're like kind of on the fence, like I don't think I'm like that. I do whatever I want. I am definitely the type of player that won't really change decks very often if I get them online, just because I usually want to get to playing as fast as possible. And so the whole tinkering and stuff isn't always something I'm very, very interested in. But this was a lot of fun. And especially because I knew that we'd get to talk about it afterwards. So even if you have a
Right.
friend that you want to do the same type of experiment, or ultimately, a lot of commander players and things like that, taking a precon and upgrading it is a really big part of like commander
Hmm.
content creation, but also just a way to play the game. Think of it like that. Think of like getting a deck list online as your precon, and then you get to add upgrades to that. Be like, oh, this card came with the deck, but like I don't really like it that much. Or like literally with this is literally the experiment we had was like even with those commander precons, it's like usually that deck is trying to do like two or three different things. You strip out the stuff that doesn't make sense with your game plan and build the deck for the game plan you liked, which is literally what happened. We had a deck that was doing two different things and shouldn't have been, even though it was still very good.
Yeah. Somehow it still
It's
worked.
still so good.
Yeah. Makes
Um,
no sense logically to me, but yeah, the deck was good.
so So yeah, I really like this. Um, tell us what you think. Go to our Discord. You can check out. We should have said this earlier, but we forget all the time. I can't blame it on beer this time, which is a bummer. But
Mm.
check out the deck list on our Discord channel. We'll have them there. I'll probably post them on Twitter and some other places as well. So hopefully they'll be out and around.
I'm sorry, what is
Um,
Twitter?
Oh, sorry, X.
Oh,
Um,
X.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Gosh. Anyway, um, so that will be uh, that'll be around. That'll be there. So test them out, and then hey, maybe take our decks, change them, and send them back and say this is how you changed ours. Maybe our deck is the one that you stole off the internet that you're going to make your own. Hey, who knows?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be awesome. And share. Um, One thing I wanted to call out too is like we sort of landed in similar situations in similar decks,
Hmm.
but a lot of our choices were dictated by what we were running into, the
That is.
metagame.
Hmm.
And I was actually thinking about that before I even saw your list. And so I wanted to just sort of call that out as something to think about when you're building decks, because I think one thing that I've seen happen
Hmm.
is people are like, oh, I like this kind of deck, I like this kind of deck, I like this kind of deck. And then they play and they're like, oh, I don't know, maybe I'm just not having fun, or maybe I just didn't like it. I think it's worth thinking through what the metagame is like when you decide what you like to play. So to sort of explain that more clearly, I think, for example, I think it's pretty common for someone maybe likes playing control, but does not like playing control mirrors. I think that's a thing that
Hmm.
can come up all the time. If control is the most popular deck in the format, maybe you don't build a control deck and just assume you're going to have a great time just because you like control, because you don't like control mirrors. Or maybe you love aggro, but you don't like aggro against control. Again, if control's the most popular deck, um, you may not have that much fun. So I think there's kind of a second level to what people enjoy playing, and that's the matchup level. And so, um, for me, control this metagame has been dominated by control, which I don't mind playing against because I have a
Hmm.
lot of experience with that.
Yeah.
Um, but that's all. I just wanted to sort of throw that out there as a disclaimer. Like, don't think about what you enjoy playing necessarily as much as one dimensional as I only like these decks. Think about like what part of the game is it creature combat that you really enjoy? Because even if you're an aggro deck, if you're playing against control, you're not going to get creature combat. So think about like what is it you enjoy playing, and you might be able to like reverse engineer what's going to be the most fun deck for you, given what's the most popular deck.
Hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And also, like, a lot of the card choices, I think, where I was making card choices specifically in my mind of like, this is how I want my deck to function. That's where I went with Evolve Sleeper because I wanted to be able to be on the board early or have
Mhm.
that kind of threat. While it seems like Jeff had a lot of great ideas about specific matchups with like Nebelgast, which is like, I want this card because it takes care of this specific card I need to get rid of very cleanly, and it doesn't get taxed by it or anything like that. Which is also a big part of that. Like the cards that you pick for your deck. I mean, like, this is something everybody knows, but like when you're actually trying to sit down and put cards together, it's like, are you putting this card deck? I mean, this card goes in your deck for what exact reason? Um, if you had, even if it doesn't, you don't have to have like the right answer. You just have to have an answer,
Yeah,
um, so that you're not just like, oh, I don't know, because like I don't know, which is something that you have to continually work at, and I myself have to continually work at as well.
yeah, that's a great call out too. And I just want to add like the answer can be because I like this card.
That's true.
But if you acknowledge that to yourself, like, hey, this card is in my deck just because I like it. Honestly, if you make that like you admit that to yourself, you'll start to see where you lose games because you had that card or
Hmm.
whatever, or like, and you just be okay with it because you'd be like, I've already decided that I know this might not be the most optimal choice. I just really like this card.
Mhm.
And you're like, yeah, card came up short here, but I've made my peace with that. Like I decided that this card is here not to win game, like not to max my game winning percentage, but to optimize my amount of fun when I do win the game, kind of thing. It's like,
Yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, I think this experiment was successful and lots of
yeah,
fun, and I'm excited to do it again in the future when we find something that fits with it.
for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, Jeff, do we go to last call now? Um,
Yeah.
I guess so. Are we rating anything this episode? We didn't really talk about this. Like, I have nothing really to rate.
Yeah.
Well, like we usually rate our beers on a scale of bronze to mythic, like the Tears and Arena. Um,
But I'm drinking my favorite beer and you're
yeah,
drinking mixed
no,
berry Powerade. So
yeah. So I'm feeling like what I want to know is, Jeff, on the scale, how was the blue beer? How did that go? Would you?
uh honestly, it was exactly the same as Mad Tom. So
Yeah, exactly the same.
it was just blue.
So if you opened a can and it was that color, you would be like, nope, it's the same. This is Mad
Well,
Dog.
no, but
It's
I know I
exactly the
added
same.
the food color.
I know, I know. I'm just breaking your balls. Um, I will continue to drink blue colored electrolyte drink.
I was gonna say, what if you had a Powerade and it was beer colored?
It was
Would you still
brown.
enjoy?
Ugh, that'd be really gross. I don't know about that. As I'm
That
continuing
doesn't
to
have
mix more,
quite the parallel I was hoping for.
it's all fizzy and weird. Ugh.
Yep.
Anyway, Jeff, let's go to closing time. This has been a nice episode. It's been a good one. I'm happy we got this one in. If you were happy that we made this episode, please find us at Arena Regulars on X and Instagram. Yuck, I hate that.
Um, aren't we on like
Oh, we're on Threads too. If you're on Threads,
yeah, I was gonna call it Meta X, but
no,
that's not what it's called yet.
no.
You can also find us on MTG Arena under the username Arena Regulars Podcast.
If you want to talk to me personally, you can find me at Zulberg. That's Zulberg on, I'm going to say Twitter. I don't give a shit. Twitter and Instagram. But Jeff, where can they find you?
Best place is on the Discord channel. Once again, the link should be in the show notes. I will be regular Jeff on there.
Also, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify and leave us a review there. Go to our YouTube channel and check out the blue drinks we are drinking this episode. All the engagement is just lots of fun for us, and we'd love to hear all your feedback. This has been the Arena Regulars,
reminding you that Shipwreck Marsh is the worst card in Standard.
good night. All right, that's fine.